guys, welcome back to Iron Game Chalk Talk. I'm your host, Ron McKeefery, and today is episode number 36. You know, one of my favorite things to do when it comes to being a strength and conditioning coach is to mentor young coaches. And today's guest, Dana Cavalea, came to me as a sophomore in college and wanted to do an internship and had laser focus in what he wanted to do. He someday wanted to be the head strength coach for the New York Yankees. And so we got Dana in as a sophomore, grinded him just like we would any other intern. And, you know, while we were there, you know, we tried to give our interns as many external experiences as we could. And so we set up a deal with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers where they'd go over and work training camp. We set up a deal with the New York Yankees because they do spring training in Tampa. And, you know, so a lot of times as they would go through our program, it wasn't uncommon for them to walk out with Division I strength and conditioning experience, Major League strength and conditioning experience, and NFL strength and conditioning experience on the resume, which was really strong. And so Dana was from New York, wanted to be the head strength coach for the New York Yankees, and, you know, we were all about trying to help him out with that. And so we introduced him to the strength coach. He grinded in that organization as an intern and then, you know, as an assistant, and then ended up fulfilling his dream of being the head strength coach for them. While he was developing that process, he created a company called ML Strength that's done fantastic, and he's now doing that full time. And so I wanted to bring Dana on the show for a couple reasons. Talk a little bit about baseball, talk a little bit about his journey, and you know, how he was able to get to where he's at currently, and just to kind of, you know, fire you guys up a little bit about giving back to the people that you have working for you. It's one of the most rewarding things there is when it comes to being a strength and conditioning coach. So I'd encourage you to do that. A couple announcements before we get going. First, want to recognize our sponsor, Play Sports Performance Flooring. They do a fantastic job. I was down at, you know, we had played a game down in Miami against the Dolphins recently, and I went by and saw you know, another former intern, Chad Smith, who's the head strength coach at FIU. And, you know, and they put in Play flooring there. It looked great. Facility looked great. And, you know, they just do a fantastic job. If you're interested or you're going through the process, reach out to, you know, Rich or Brett, anybody at Play. Let them come in and just show you what they're all about, because it's more than I could even share with you on these episodes. Also, you know, if you go over and to their Facebook page and like their Facebook page, it's a great way to see some, you know, facilities that are out there, some things that they're doing, and just getting more familiar with them as a company, because they're more than just a company of strength coaches. They're obviously doing some great things and helping give back. Being able to help me provide this show to you for free is a great example of that. Football Strong, you know, I put on Football Strong clinics, and we are going to Canada for the first time internationally. Dale Eblins is the head strength coach up there, and we partnered up. We're going to do it at York University there in Toronto. Beautiful venue, great facility, awesome city, and it's going to be a really neat event. So go to footballstrong.com and check out more about that. Lastly, before we get going, you know, as I mentioned a couple times, we are on iTunes now. If you have not gone over to iTunes and subscribed and downloaded the episodes that you're missing, please do that. If you would, I would ask that while you're there, if you could leave a rating and review. And it's very easy. Just go, you know, do a search for Iron Game Chalk Talk, go to ratings and review, and then just hit write a review. I'd truly appreciate that. It helps me continue to share this. If I show you the rankings here, you know, right now the show is ranked, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's been as high as number 2 for fitness and nutrition, and I'm as competitive as anybody. So now that I know that there's actually rankings, I want to go ahead and beat this guy, and this guy. I don't know who they are, but there's no reason why we shouldn't be beating them. And plus, you know, more importantly, it helps me continue to share the message with other strength coaches and help out as many coaches as we can. So enough with the announcements. Going to get a ton out of this episode. Sit back and enjoy Dana Cavalea. All right, guys, fired up to have Dana Cavalea with me. Dana worked with me at University of South Florida. He is a guy that I'm very proud of and what he's accomplished, and just a good friend. So, Dana, I appreciate you being on the show, man.
Thanks, Coach. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, brother. Let's go into it a little bit. What got you into the field? Kind of how where's your journey taking you up until this point in your career?
Yeah, you know what? For me, I started just as a baseball player myself, and I always enjoyed the game. I loved playing. I loved watching, and I remember I went to a game with my father. I was probably in 8th grade, and I was looking around the stadium before the game, and I saw some guy on the right field line, and who is that? What is that guy doing? He's stretching out the players. What is that? I remember I became kind of fascinated with who that guy was, and a few years later, you introduced me to that guy when I got to the University of South Florida, and Jeff Mangold was a guy that was the head strength coach of the Yankees at the time, and
That's right.
anyway, so I remember that kind of moment, and I was actually going to college. Here in New York, I was at a small school, Queens College, played baseball there, decided that I couldn't take the weather anymore and I wanted to go south, so I head down to Florida, and I kind of remember it again. What did that guy do? And then we didn't have strength and conditioning in New York. It wasn't really that kind of town. It's more of an academic, music, art, kind of town, and the sports came second, and so I didn't know anything about strength and conditioning. I knew I'd like to work out. That was it.
Right.
Well, I came to USF. I was originally going to be an athletic training major, and I couldn't really pass chemistry 2, that is. And, by default, I had to take an exercise science program, and I kind of said, man, this is it. This was that program that guy on the line probably, engaged in. And then I was told to go find you at USF, and I went to the dungeon of a weight room in the bottom of the USF Sundome.
2,000 square feet, baby. That's right.
And there we were in a smelly dungeon, and me and my buddy Napoleon ended up interning, that same year, and doing all sorts of crazy things that made no sense to me, cleaning and painting and doing all sorts of stuff. And now I'm the same guy with my guy saying, hey,
right.
Listen. Let me come here. Let me show you how to do something. Here's
right.
how you clean a window. Here's how you do this. So, I always had a passion for working out and training and sports. So, now I realize I just I really just enjoy what training does. It builds self-esteem. It builds it gives the guys the strength internally to perform. So.
Sure. Well, Dana was an intern for us at South Florida. Napoleon is also the minor league coordinator for the Rangers still, right?
Yeah, he's with the Texas Rangers right now. Yeah.
And so both guys were sophomores at the time when he came, right?
Yep.
We're sophomores in the program, and came over and started interning. And as soon as Dana walked in, he said, "I wanted to be the head strength coach for the New York Yankees." That was his goal.
Yeah.
And so we're very fortunate in Tampa. We had minor league, we had the minor league team there, and that's where they had training camp. So Dana, Jeff Mangold and I had worked out a deal where some of the guys could go over, and Dana hit it off and ended up going back up to New York and working with him there, and then ended up taking over with New York. And so, but I mentioned all that just because here's a guy, as a young guy, knew exactly what he wanted. It was very focused, and because he had a very focused goal, he was able to go and accomplish it. And so he did phenomenal things with that, and then also founded ML Strength, during that process, started even back early on and then built it up. Tell us a little bit about ML Strength.
Yeah, so while I was trying to get a full-time job, with the Yankees, I interned for free for about 3 or 4 years with Jeff and those guys. And, I'm glad I did because it put me around, it put me around these guys, and I had a chance to be myself and show them that I can work hard to try and to earn a spot, really. And
right.
A couple things happened there, and I ended up scooting in there at 22 years old, running the program. So that was somewhat surreal. But during that time, I did have 2 years or so from the time I finished college to the time I really settled in to the Yankees gig, and I was training kids at my old high school on the field. And again, there was no strength and conditioning, speed training, any of that stuff going on in New York at the time. So being, down in Florida for a few years, I was exposed to that. And I was able to bring what I learned back up north and, meet kids in the community, meet families. And I said, man, this is pretty cool here. So the story goes a little bit like this. There was a trainer that was working with Derek Jeter at the time, and he said, man, you know what? You should get a job at a pretty prestigious sports club in New York called the Sports Club LA. All celebrities train there, pro guys, boom, boom, boom. Anyway, I end up, I'm about an hour and 15 minutes from the city, so I had to take a train in to get there. And, I remember I got scheduled for the 5 a.m. opening shift, so that would mean I had to be on a train at about, 3:45 in the morning. So I slept at my grandmother's house. Anyway, going into the city and making $9 an hour doing this shift. I remember being on the train, absolutely miserable, and I started just crunching some numbers. Actually, I started saying, man, if I did charge somebody $50 an hour and I did 10 hours a week, what would that equal? And then I started just kind of doing it like that, and I got to work that day. I swiped in, asked to talk to my manager a little bit later in the shift, and I said, hey, listen, I'm not going to be coming back after today. And I jumped back on the train, went out to the business office, registered my business as Major League Strength, and I started training kids at my school. And that was the basics of how it started. I believe that was probably in about 2004. And anyway, so I got the gig with the Yankees. We won a little bit, made a couple bucks. And then I said, you know what? I still want to do more. It's great to work with the pro guys, but wouldn't it be cool if I can create these little micro communities and have people train and work out, and this could be like a second home, and I can build this company and this brand, and my buddy started Under Armour, and man, we can be the next Under Armour. So now I have one facility here in White Plains with a couple more on the way and some big aspirations. So that's how it all kind of started.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Dan, let's get into a little programming. One of the biggest challenges with baseball is obviously how long and daunting the season is, and so in-season training becomes a big issue. And this could be applied to basketball, it could be hockey, it could be baseball. Obviously, with as much travel, games, all those things. Talk a little bit about your programming, how you kind of lay it out from a calendar type standpoint. And maybe the type of training that you're doing during the season.
Yeah, well, I always whenever I talk about training for baseball, because we play so many games, I always talk about volume, and I say as your game volume increases, your training volume has to decrease. If you can remember that, your chances of failure or creating overuse injuries is a lot less. And you got to understand fatigue, and you got to understand that these guys are going to come to you quite tired quite often. So it comes down to, let me just get something out of them. The thing is, what is the key something for them? And for some guys, it's an actual lift. For some guys, it's some sort of recovery or flex day. And for other guys, it's the full package or a pull workout. So it's very important that I call it a floating periodization model, where it's day to day. I have a global plan, but at the end of the day, I'm adjusting my plan according to what they're bringing me per day. If I keep telling a guy, hey, listen, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this, and it involves a higher volume than he's ready for that particular day, I'm going to wear him down. If I wear him down, it's just this compounded fatigue that leads to this breakdown. So I would say, like in spring training, again, those are our prep days. We're really, we have higher volume, but once our spring training game starts, we shrink our volume a little bit. For me, I try and keep our guys in spring training on a 2 days on, 1 day off, 2 days on, 2 days off. So they're getting, again, those 3 recovery days throughout the week, in which they'll do something in a pool on their own, or they'll do some sort of stretching, yoga, something relaxing. There's some of that, breathing techniques. It's difficult for me to get, some of these guys on the floor and focus on, diaphragmatic breathing. They're just not wired that way.
Sure. But
some guys are really into it. Like a guy like Raul Ibanez was super into that stuff, which was really cool. So as spring training goes on, again, I start to cut the volume, and then the last 2 weeks, I try and get 4 to 6 workouts out of them. So I really just try and get two 2 the week before the last, and then 2 the last week of spring training. Give them a few days off before the season starts, and then when we get to New York, I would give them a day off for our team, workout. And then from there, I'd get them on their workout schedule where I would get them 3 days a week, like a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, because I wanted them to feel like a weekend is still, it's different. It's a change of pace. Typically we play day games on the weekend, Friday night game, day game Saturday, 9 a.m. report.
Right.
So it wasn't even the time. So, and then my philosophy was a little bit different in that I wanted them to lift the most load in September and October. So our intensities were the highest in September and October, but our volume was extremely low. Maybe 4 sets, hex bar deadlift, working at 90% capacity, 95%, 2 reps. 4 sets of 2 reps, get out, just to keep that stimulation neurologically and build that strength. I wasn't a big maintenance in-season maintenance guy because I felt like if you say you're on a maintenance program, that means you're not going to work as hard.
Right.
So
I agree 100% with that. What from a scheduling standpoint now, and maybe get some advice to maybe a college coach in the situation where you're having to balance classes and all these other things. Was it that you're lifting, multiple groups in the morning, or was it you're lifting sometimes after the game? How did you set the schedule?
Yeah. The way I set the schedule was, in spring training, I tried to get all our lifts done before we took the field for practice. Because again, I don't want a fatigued athlete in my weight room because a fatigued athlete in training means the chances of them getting hurt under my watch was a lot higher. So there were some guys that, they may have had some extra work in the morning and I had to swing them to the back end.
Right.
But again, cut their volume because I knew that they were coming to me, pre-fatigued, if you will. So,
right.
And then, during the season, what I would do is I would actually do 90% of our lifts before practice. A lot of people are like, well, you're going to burn them out. I always say, listen, after you train, do you feel more alert and alive, or do you feel totally dead and exhausted? 9 out of 10 people say, I feel great. And then, so I'd send them into the game feeling great. And again, we're only working 20, 25 minutes, 10 of which is, core and corrective work. So now we're down to 20 minutes of actual work, and they're getting full recovery in between sets. So what we were doing wasn't wearing them down for the game. And if they felt it was, that was the excuse, setting up a poor performance.
No doubt. And kind of on that note then, when you're dealing with high-profile athletes, and probably nobody's dealt with higher-profile athletes than being a New York Yankee.
Yeah.
How do you manage those egos? How do you manage those personalities when you got so many?
I think it's I never caused controversy with those guys. I never challenged their ego, but I always let them know that I was just a regular dude, man, and I'm here to help you guys. I'm here for you.
Right.
I don't have any other alternative motives but to help you guys and help you guys get better. And it's kind of cool, man, when you see these guys out now and you have relationships with them. You go to lunch with them, you take them to dinner, you just become a friend to them.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also this line of respect too, where they know that you're there for them, and you're gonna crack the whip if you have to, and you can't be afraid or look at a guy and say, "Oh my God, that's Derek Jeter. What am I gonna do?" Instead, you got to say, "Hey, that's Derek Jeter. He's one of my players." And you got to know about Derek's family, and you got to know about what makes him tick and the things he likes. And it's not all business all the time. There has to be a human element to what you do. So then the ego starts to see you as one of them, one of their guys.
Right.
And they bring you into their camp, and you guys work together, and they respect that and they appreciate it. And again, you can't put yourself ahead of them. And I see that happen a lot in this field. You can comb the internet left and right, and you see this guy, trainer of the stars, or they list all the players that they trained. And when you train somebody, it doesn't mean like you saw them at a conference once,
right?
Or
right.
You were there, next to a guy that was training him, and now you put him on your list.
That's
That's not what it's about. Our field has gone that way.
Right.
It's gone about the celebrity coach or the celebrity trainer, and that's not really what we are, you know.
Well, it all comes down to the relationships, like you mentioned, and that's something that we've talked about on the show quite a bit. But one of our team chaplain in South Florida would always say that you spell love TIME, and investing in them, giving them your time and efforts, and athletes recognize that. Obviously they know when there's somebody that's real, and they know that when there's somebody that's fake because they see it every day.
Yeah.
And so by investing in them, and like you said, expressing that the only reason that you're there is for their success, sends a strong message, and that's regardless of the level.
Yeah, and you're there to, at times you're there to protect them, you know what I mean, and help them make the right choices and right decisions. And if you're using them as a mode to generate more income for yourself in a negative way, you know what I mean, like
Leverage, yeah, sure.
Yeah, you got to respect that relationship that you've built, and they'll respect you, and then they'll want to help you.
Absolutely, no doubt.
But don't abuse that,
Well, that's with professional athletes, and being having been with a couple professional organizations, and these guys, they know who they are. They know who they are, and sometimes working with college athletes, they don't quite know who they are yet, they all think that they're pro athletes,
Yep.
and but they have a misguided opinion or concept of what being a professional really is, and that's going back and really working at your craft and understanding your role and contributing to the success of the organization, or you won't be there.
Right. Exactly.
So.
Yeah.
But that's great. That's that's the takeaway. The takeaway is invest in your players.
No doubt. Number one. That's number one. And just an addendum to that is, I see so many guys now that they're almost like too smart, and they're trying to bring all this jargon and all this. They can't do your research, which is great. But at the end of the day, I see players that can't squat, lunge, deadlift, do the basics, step up. They can't do that, and we're going to hit them with all this other stuff. Like, keep it simple, man. Keep it very simple and get the results with simplicity. And, we used to have a coach named Larry Boa with us, and he used to talk to Robinson Cano all the time, and Cano would be flipping the ball around his back to turn a double play and be all fancy and bobble the ball and cause an error and give up a run. And he'd say, God damn it, Robbie, keep it vanilla. Keep it vanilla. And I always remembered that and said, I'm not going to impress anybody with my programs. I'm not, smart enough, but where I am smart enough is to keep it simple.
Yeah.
Sure, we master those basics. And if we can do that, we will be successful.
Well, that's great advice. Advice. What about travel? Let's flip gears a little bit. Nutrition. Obviously, these guys, it runs the gamut because they got money. They can buy any kind of food that they want. So their taste vary, especially in baseball where you have multicultural sometimes, a lot of times.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about how you integrated, educated, and then tried to integrate opportunities, maybe on flights and things like that, where you could control what they were putting in their mouth.
Yeah, we tried to just create, really this past 2 years we got on this was this traffic light system. Basically, green, yellow, red. Your reds are all your, processed foods, baked goods, sugar, sweets, additives, mayo, and all dressings and that. Your yellows are more of your, your breads and your pastas and your starches like that. And then your greens were, greens were your vegetables and fruits, etc. So we were basically unlimited greens, moderate the yellows, and really try and stay away from the reds. That was our simple pitch on nutrition. Again, these guys need simple, they need visual cues, and they need to keep it as simple as possible. When it came to the plane, it was looking at the menu. We put together like a mobile salad bar. Where the flight attendants would walk up and down the aisle and, make custom salads for guys if they wanted it. We tried, typically they'd want to put dessert on the tray, so we took the dessert off the tray. We did have some sweets on the plane because some guys would crave it and want it, and these are grown men. So we just stopped them from walking up and down the aisles distributing it. We said, hey, listen, you can have it here, but pack it in the back. We don't want to see it. Unless somebody asks for it, then you give it to them.
Right. Well, that's a good idea.
Just those simple things,
Talk about that a little bit more about that the mobile salad bar. How did that work so much?
I mean, guys loved it. It was crazy.
It's a great idea. I'm curious now.
Yeah, they would walk up and down the aisle. What kind of lettuce do you want? What do you want to put on it? And we had all sorts of things from avocados to, mushrooms to, everything,
Right.
and then we had shrimp, we had
Chicken and whatnot.
chicken, exactly. Yeah.
So they just kept it. Now, was it something that you set up through an Aramark or a catering or something, or was it something that you were able to set up through the airline?
Yeah, no, it was set up through the airline.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. It's they can set up whatever you want.
That's a really good idea. I'm gonna have to look into that.
Yeah, yep. So we just tried to even make the snack options healthy options. We would bring some Lara bars and things that we wanted to see these guys eat. We know they're gonna eat. We had fruit cups walking up and down. We had like a cup of mixed nuts. Guys became very health conscious towards the end. What we would have them do is walk up and down, put a water in every seat before the flight took off, and then also have walk up and down constantly with water, water, water.
Right. What about like in the clubhouse then, and maybe during the game, any kind of recovery strategies there from a nutrition standpoint?
Yeah. Well, for me, one of my best friends is our equipment guy who's also our clubhouse manager. So he's in charge of food purchase and everything else. So, man, by the end of my tenure, we had a chef who cooked everything. We had a lot of vegetables on our spread, from sweet potatoes to asparagus to just everything in a salad at every meal.
Right.
Early in the day, again, we had a whole salad bar station where guys could make their own salads. And then again, on the weekends, look, these guys want to blow it out a little bit. We had, grilled cheese sandwiches and ham and cheese and,
Right.
just some fun stuff because you got to
give to get, right?
got to give to get. When I first came in, I said, no soda, no ice cream. I want it all out of here, everything out of here. And guys went crazy. They hated me. Disconnected the fountain soda machines, all that.
Right.
Now, that's optimal. But I think if you continue to educate your guys, they'll know not to go to the fountain machine.
Right.
They'll know that. So that's what I try to do. Just, get guys' ears. Like this last year, I used to put articles out on the table just about different topics, simple things. Diabetes, what is it? How do you get it? And more visual diagrams than actual,
Sure.
Dissertations on paper. Guys they won't read it. Some guys can't read, but they can see a picture,
Right. No, it's a great idea.
Yeah, so simple things. The other thing I did was I made table tents that talked about like pregame, in-game, and post-game nutrition, like 5 or 6 bullet points for each one. What should I eat before the game, what should I eat during, and what should I eat after. That's it.
No, it's huge.
Yeah.
What about from a supplementation standpoint? Did you have products there, or did you kind of try to steer away from it? What was the status?
Yeah, you know what? Here's the thing. Like for us, there was the whole this NSF. Everything had to be NSF approved, and
Right.
it kind of became just like too much to manage. And I looked at it like if we can teach these guys how to use whole foods to eat better, or to fuel their body. Our supplement routine was based on a multivitamin, a C, an E, and the fish oils, and that was our supplement program. Now some guys were like, "Hey D, I don't want to eat late tonight. Can you make me a little something?"
Right.
So what I do is I put together a little bit of a shake. I used actually a protein I used was Bipro, which is like a really clean. It's got one ingredient, whey protein. That's it.
Right.
No additives, no flavor, no nothing. So I'd make them a little something with that. But I kept it super simple because early in my career I saw guys, pounding all these different proteins and mixing it with peanut butters and everything else. At the time you're trying to make a health shake and it's 1,000 calories.
That's right.
So you totally like saying, I don't want to eat good whole foods because I'm going to bed in a little while, but you flooded yourself with negative nutrients,
Right.
So it's all education and also being real. You can't expect a guy to eat, salad and, just vegetables all day long.
Right.
Is that maybe what's the optimal, diet or whatnot or, whatever, grilled chicken? Guys aren't going to do that all day long, So you got to be real.
That's a great point. That's a great point. Well, we always finish these shows off with a couple recommendations here. So give me a quote that you live by.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, it's one I try and live by.
All right.
I think I'll try and live by these quotes. And But get comfortable with the uncomfortable. Um,
Sure.
it's very difficult. You got to put yourself in high exposure situations to do that. You got to be vulnerable. You got to put yourself out there, and that's hard. Because sometimes you may hear people, they may not agree with you. They may say things you don't like, but you got to be there. You got to be in it to win it. You gotta be in the arena to win the game. So
No doubt. No
that's a
doubt.
big one. That's a big one for me. And I try and stay with that.
That's good. That's a good one. Give me let's talk a little technology. Maybe an app that you use with your players, or one that you recommend, maybe just for your own productivity.
Yeah. Well, one that I started using now, was sent to me through Under Armour, was Map My Fitness.
Yeah.
It's just it's hooked up to a GPS. It kind of gives you a record of what you're doing. So I like that. To be quite honest with you, I'm not a big tech guy. I just don't like to especially for training. I feel like it's such a personal thing.
Right.
And like that relationship. I didn't let guys bring cell phones into the weight room or anywhere near it. You know what I mean? I wanted that relationship with the player. So,
Sure.
maybe I need to do a little more research as to what apps are out there. But I'm not huge on that.
I hear
So,
you. What about maybe when you're surfing, you're looking for a resource? Give me a resource that you go to online for information when you're trying to.
yeah. You know what? I'm embarrassed to say this, but I feel like Facebook's my number one resource these
That's
days.
not. Hey, that's. I'm
Yeah.
with you.
It's like, I realize, how much smarter a lot of these guys are than I am out there, and I'm constantly reading their stuff. And, I know Mike Boyle puts out his, 25 lessons I've learned in 25 years. And,
Yeah.
you're like, yeah, no, it makes sense. You should brush your teeth in between training sessions. Make sure you're smelling good. All these little tips that he's got. But, I pick up on a lot of stuff, man. I'm always looking at what's out there and what I can
Right.
take, even if it's a snippet or tidbit. And I like to read. I go back to some of my older books, and a lot of the stuff's not even in the field.
Right.
One of my favorite books is written by Howard Schultz, called "Pour Your Heart Into It," about how Starbucks started. And there's so
Yeah.
many things you could take from that book, that you can apply, that makes sense. Like, you can apply it to your weight room. Like, how do you make your weight room more marketable and make it a place where guys feel safe and they want to go, and it's their third space between work and home, and it's a safe zone.
Right.
I read that. I'll peek back at the NSCA textbook. For some things, I'll peek back at NASM has a different twist on things that I enjoy.
Right.
I listen to the Mike Boyle podcast for just some variety. And at the end of the day, everybody's got nice thoughts and nice opinions, but you got to find what works best for you and your situation, and try different things. Go with it.
No, that's a great point. That's a great point. Well, Dan, there's nothing better than having somebody that's worked with you have so much success, and you've been a beacon that way for me, and truly appreciate you coming on the show and sharing some information with everybody, and very very happy and proud of you, brother.
Thanks, Coach. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thanks a lot, buddy.
Okay.
Things before we let you go, please join me by going over to robmckeefery.com and going to the show notes for this episode. Just go to robmckeefery.com/36, and you'll get all the links that we mentioned, links to Dana's site, his social media, all those types of things. But while you're there, if you would, in the comments section, just give us some feedback. Give us some feedback about the show. Give us some feedback about maybe some guests that you're wanting to see on the show. But more importantly, if you would let Dana know how much we appreciate him coming on the show and sharing his ideas with us. Obviously the show only works if we're able to get great coaches on, and being completely transparent for you guys. So please go there and thank him for coming on the show. While you're there, join the mailing list. What you do is you get an ebook, 365 quotes that I use with our athletes, completely free. And then I send you a weekly email, just letting you know what the latest Iron Game Chalk Talk episode is, as well as what the latest Tribe TV episode is, or video is. So Just a reminder there. If you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe to the channel there so you get updates there. If if iTunes is the way to go for you, go to iTunes and subscribe to the channel. Download any episodes that you're missing, and leave a rating and review while you're there. Really appreciate you watching the show. Check back next week for another great episode. Take care.